Imagine being a judge who releases a violent criminal and 48 hours later, an innocent mother is dead. Now imagine being sued personally for that decision. That's exactly what Representative Randy Fine wants to make reality after Irina Zaratuska was murdered by DeCarlos Brown Jr., a repeat offender who should have been behind bars. Fine's revolutionary bill would strip judges of their immunity shield when they knowingly release dangerous predators. The black-robed elites who play Russian roulette with public safety while hiding behind armed bailiffs are about to face real accountability. Even Elon Musk backed this with his signature approval. The judicial revolution has arrived and activist judges are running scared. So here's what's coming. But first, a word from our sponsor. Imagine an opportunity that could grow your wealth while also strengthening your country's future. That's the vision behind Western Star Resources. Western Star Resources is an experienced, publicly traded gold and silver exploration company with a proven track record in advancing high-potential projects. The company combines deep geological expertise with modern exploration techniques to unlock the value in some of North America's most prospective mineral regions. With domestic demand for precious metals continuing to rise and with the U.S. government backing stronger domestic exploration, Western Star Resources is positioned for the next stage of growth. The company is advancing active projects in Canada and is actively evaluating opportunities in the United States. So could a huge U.S. expansion plan be on the cards? I wouldn't bet against them or that plan. Western Star Resources is making gold and silver great again. Check them out in the link in the description, westernstarresources.com. The press secretary today discussing the savage murder of Irina Zaratuska. Horrific video surfaced over the weekend of that murder, that poor defenseless woman. Oh, yeah, the media completely silent on it. Let's listen what she had to say.
Once again, without...
Oh, where'd it go? Sorry.
...bail. Today, I would like to address the tragedy that has not received nearly enough media attention, the brutal murder of Irina Zaratuska. Here are the facts that many outlets have shamefully and intentionally failed to report until President Trump drew attention to it. On August 22nd, Irina Zaratuska was stabbed to death on the rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina, by a savage career criminal. This is a public transportation system that many in the area use every single day to go to school and work. Irina was on the train that night traveling home from her job at a pizzeria, still in uniform from her shift. This beautiful, innocent 23-year-old young woman was a Ukrainian refugee who had recently fled her country for a chance at a safer life and a promising new beginning here in the United States of America. But tragically, a public transportation system in a major American city was more dangerous than the active war zone that she left. The president and the entire White House are praying for her family and friends during this unimaginably difficult time. But while we extend our thoughts and prayers, we must also seek justice for this crime and call attention to this heinous incident. Surveillance video of the killing was finally released to the public this past Friday. It shows the alleged killer, DeCarlos Brown Jr., pull out a knife, get up from his seat behind Irina, and prepare to thrust a blade into her neck before the released footage gets cut. This is pure evil on full display. The most enraging and unacceptable part of this story is that her death was entirely preventable. DeCarlos Brown never should have been on that train that night. In fact, he should have been behind bars. DeCarlos Brown has been charged with crimes no fewer than 14 times, dating back to 2011, including for armed robbery, felony larceny, breaking and entering, and shoplifting. Brown had previously served 5 years in prison for a robbery with a deadly weapon charge, and he had also forfeited bonds 3 different times, twice in 2014 and once in 2023. Despite all of this past documented criminal history, when Brown was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge, I will add was a strong supporter of former Vice President Kamala Harris, released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. He simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing. Think about how crazy it is to ask a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise and come back again another day. This is madness. This monster should have been locked up, and Irina should still be alive. But Democrat politicians, liberal judges, and weak prosecutors would rather virtue signal than lock up criminals and protect their communities. And perhaps most shamefully of all, the majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative. Many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City, but none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer. Here's the truth that every American must know. Too many innocent people across the country continue to pay the price of the failed experiment known as cashless bail that has been championed by the Democrat Party for years. All the way back in 2020, North Carolina's then Democrat Governor Roy Cooper established a so-called task force for racial equity and criminal justice. Sounds nice, but it's not. That task force was co-authored by then Attorney General and current Democrat Governor Josh Stein. It recommended, quote, reimagining public safety to, quote, promote diversion and other alternatives to arrest. It also advised to de-emphasize some felony crimes, prioritize, quote, restorative justice, and eliminate cash bail. Democrats in North Carolina and nationwide are consumed with pushing a woke, soft-on-crime agenda, no matter how many innocent Americans suffer as a result. Instead of aggressively prosecuting and locking up violent criminals, the Democrat-backed cashless bail approach lets these criminals roam free in our country to offend again and again. These reckless policies have turned too many of American cities into hunting grounds for career criminals who mock our justice system, drain law enforcement resources, and wreak havoc on law-abiding citizens. Enough is enough, and that is why President Trump is doing everything in his power by taking action to undo these absurd policies. The president recently signed a powerful executive order directing the AG to submit a list of states and local jurisdictions with cashless bail policies so that the Trump administration may identify federal funds that are being provided to these states and can potentially be suspended or terminated. President Trump firmly believes that to maintain order in public safety, we must incarcerate individuals whose pending criminal charges or criminal history demonstrate a clear, ongoing risk to civil society. This is a common sense and sensible approach that the vast majority of Americans agree with, and it's time for the Democrat Party to get on board with what is right. When these criminals are caught, they must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and be sent to prison, where they can no longer terrorize our streets. This is the mandate the American people delivered to President Trump, and it's a mandate he intends to fulfill. Today, I would...
Oh, wow. CNN siding with the man who stabbed Irina in the throat and downplayed the attack. They shamed anyone calling it racist and ignored the audio where he bragged about getting a white girl. Clown World posting this.
Along with it.
Want to be there.
Yeah, and it's
about
difficult
forcing them to be there.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard time knowing that you are mentally ill. But also, I mean, people like Charlie Kirk, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of like reciprocal George Floyd situation. And that's the part that I think he's almost giving away the game. And it's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
You know, let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad's going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. So I think that's an important thing to point out. The other thing is, you mentioned the thing about cashless bail. I think this is a big challenge that we have. Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail? and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out. It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons. And then for someone like Charlie Kirk, he should be ashamed of himself. No one mentioned the word race, white, black, or anything except him. What people mention is the horror of what happened to this young woman.
Want to be there.
Yeah, and it's
about
difficult
forcing them to be there.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard.
And speaking of Charlie Kirk, we get this just in 4 hours ago. He posted that President Trump has just released a video on the killing of Irina Zaratuska.
People. For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities that set loose savage, bloodthirsty criminals to prey on innocent people, really very, very innocent people. In every place, they control radical left judges, politicians, and activists, and they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country. We have to respond with force and strength. We have to be vicious just like they are. It's the only thing they understand. 24 of the top 25 most dangerous cities in America are run by Democrat mayors. 50 people were murdered in Chicago in recent weeks, with hundreds being shot. And it's time to stop this madness. The people of our country need to insist on protection, safety, law, and order. We have proven that it can be done because we did it right here in D.C., in District of Columbia. The capital of America was a bloodthirsty, horrible, dangerous place, one of the worst. And now it's a crime-free city, and we're going to keep it that way. It can be done. It can happen fast. All we want is, please, Mr. President, we need help. Chicago needs help. Other cities need help. We'll do what has to be done because we're going to make America safe again, and that includes our big cities. We're going to make those cities safe. Thank you.
President Trump issuing a proclamation from the Oval Office, and Charlie Kirk calling out CNN's Van Jones, responding.
He puts race in. Well, first of all, as you aptly noted, that in the video, it's pretty clear that the attacker said, quote, "that white girl." Secondly, Van Jones, he puts race in almost every situation where it doesn't exist. For example, with the death of George Floyd, Van Jones repeatedly said that it was a racist attack. You know who didn't say that? Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General of Minnesota at the time, said that race did not play any role in the actions that happened with George Floyd's death. But even beyond that, and I think this is what's very important, is that we are living in a mental model and a framing post-2020. The 2020 model is that the worst thing that could possibly happen is racial attacks. Remember, even before that, Jussie Smollett or the FBI being mobilized for even the slightest whisper of a hate crime. But now, all of a sudden, when we make the left live up to their own standard of rules, there is complete silence by the entire American media. And then Van Jones goes on television and calls me a race hustler for even calling out the facts and the specifics around this case. Now, this was quite interesting because why is it the media was so quiet on this? You got to wonder, Will, because if the roles were reversed, and I tweeted this out and I will stand by it, if a white attacker was minding his own business and a perfectly law-abiding black individual was minding her own business, and that white attacker took out a knife and was relentlessly hacking a law-abiding black girl, you and I both know, Will, this would be national headlines, and there'd be more than 0 headlines, as you pointed out on your show yesterday. And so Van Jones, he wants to keep on trying to find racial motives that they don't exist, and he ignores them when they're in broad daylight in front of him on recorded video and a horrendous attack such as this? The media doesn't care about this, and we should start asking why. Well, first of all...
Yeah. Well said, Charlie. Well said, Mr. President. This is an image that was released just recently. The horror moments before her demise. So sad. I don't even know where to go from here. Here's the press secretary providing an update on the president's successful D.C. crime crackdown.
Who were arrested. I do have some updates for you on the D.C. crime crackdown if anyone is interested. There have been a total of 2,177 arrests made since the start of the operation on August 7th. Just last night, there were 57 arrests made in Washington, D.C. Of the 57 arrests, there were 14 illegal aliens who were arrested, many of whom had prior criminal histories. And other arrests just last night in our nation's capital, so you all can be very grateful for this. Our great men and women of law enforcement, both federal and local, working together as they should, made an arrest on a warrant for assault with the intent to kill. The subject shot 2 adult males after an altercation. They made an arrest on a warrant for an armed carjacking. The subject assaulted an adult male in the face with a firearm and then took his keys. We also made an arrest on a warrant for simple assault and the destruction of property and subsequently charged with second-degree theft. Last night in D.C., there was an arrest for possession of a controlled substance with second-degree theft. There was an arrest for possession of a controlled substance with the intent to distribute. That subject, the person is also a subject of interest in a homicide and a carjacking. Last night in D.C., we also arrested a felon in possession of a firearm who was carrying that firearm without a license. So these are the career criminals. These are the bad guys that we are picking up in Washington, D.C. every day. The president would love to do this in every Democrat-run city across the country, and he hopes that more Democrats will call the White House to allow us to help them.
But of course they won't, because that would admit their failure. Here is Congressman Randy Fine writing, DeCarlos Brown Jr. should have never been released. Irina Zaratuska should still be alive. To the judges who put violent criminals back on our streets, your day in court is coming.
By someone who By now, many of you have seen the horrific video of Irina Zaratuska, an immigrant to the United States from Ukraine, who was literally stabbed to death while sitting on a bus by someone who never should have been out of jail. A guy who was released more than a dozen times, a violent criminal, by some wackadoo liberal judge who gets to live behind gated fences and has armed guards protecting them. Well, that's going to stop now. I will be filing legislation to hold every judge in the United States personally responsible when they release violent criminals back onto the streets. If they want to release them back onto the streets, they're going to be responsible if they do something bad. I guarantee this will solve the problem. Look for that bill to drop the minute we have it finished. By now, many of you have seen the horrific video of Irina.
So it looks like the judges are going to be held accountable if they continue to release these violent offenders back on the streets. Here's more from the congressman on Fox Business. Why should leftist judges be protected when they willingly let violent criminals back onto the streets? And this super chat just came in from Wayne the Wolf. He asked the question, what about holding the judges accountable for releasing him? If bartenders can be held responsible for over-serving drunks, then judges should be held accountable for releasing people like Mr. Brown. So that's what's happening. We have this from the congressman on Fox Business.
If you're a bartender, well, I think we've got to hold judges accountable. Look, if you're a bartender who gives too many alcoholic beverages to a customer in the bar and they kill someone on the way home, you get held responsible. So why should a judge who's protected by an armed bailiff get off the hook when they let these killers into our streets? What my bill will do is allow the family of one of these victims to sue the judge personally and hold them accountable for the crime that they allowed to happen.
Looks like the congressman directly addressed Mr. Wayne the Wolf's remarks. Let's continue. I think we have some more Fox News writing. It's easy to release criminals when you're protected by an armed bailiff at all times. The rest of us aren't so lucky. Republican Representative Randy Fine is calling for judges to face consequences if violent repeat offenders they release go on to commit crimes. I don't even want to play the video. You guys can find it. President Trump announcing senseless crime in Democrat-run cities and the horrific murder of a young woman in Charlotte by a deranged monster. It's time to stop this madness. Republican pushes bill to hold judges accountable for releasing violent repeat criminals. New York City is becoming safer under Trump. Is that right? Let's see what we have here.
Telling you, Trump cleaned up Midtown Manhattan in New York City. I am literally telling you, every single day, right here where the Empire State Building is at, this is 34th, whatever, and Broadway 6th Avenue, right? They intersect there. This right here, this whole area, wrapped around left and right, you usually have your freaking illegals with the blankets out, selling like bootleg stuff. It has been empty since Trump started deporting people. Like rain, sleet, or snow, this whole block, that whole block over there, all this would be laid out with bootleg stuff by illegals. This whole strip gone. I haven't seen them for about a week. Have not seen them. That side as well. He cleaned it up. This is incredible. Look at this. I have not seen this in years. I am telling you that all the illegals are gone from here. They're hiding. They're not out here bootlegging. It is feeling a little bit safer starting to like this. Trump.
So they clearly got the memo. They understand that they're not playing games anymore. Bootleggers, illegals, criminals. There's a new sheriff in town. His name's President Trump. Meanwhile, Democrats are out protesting, demanding more crime because stopping crime is racism. Adam Lowett's posting this. Massive protests begun in D.C. over President Trump's crackdown on crime. Of course, this is over the weekend. Here's President Trump outside of Air Force One talking about making D.C. safe again.
Saturday, actually. You have essentially a crime-free zone. I mean, here we are on a nice Sunday evening. If you'd like, it feels like Saturday, actually. If you like, you could go out and you could have dinner on me, but you wouldn't do that. But you could have dinner on me if you'd like. Go ahead, what else? You have essentially a crime.
President Trump, here's Stephen Miller on making D.C. safe again.
Of course, we've seen, and you're only seeing the very beginnings of this. So, during the first few weeks, of course, we've seen these radical reductions in violent crime. We're just getting started. DEA, ATF, FBI have only just begun to identify, disrupt, and dismantle the criminal organizations that have been wreaking havoc on the city for so long. And we're going to take them apart, member by member, group by group, piece by piece, and we're going to set this city free. And you're only seeing the very beginnings of this. So
you're only seeing the beginning. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So Randy Fine just dropped a truth bomb that's shaking the judicial establishment to its core. Irina Zaratuska is dead because a judge decided a violent predator deserved another chance. That blood is on the judge's hands, and Fine's bill would make them pay, literally. Think about it. Judges sit behind bulletproof glass, protected by armed bailiffs, making life and death decisions about our safety while they're from their ivory towers. Meanwhile, we're out here defenseless when their social experiments go wrong, and Fine nailed it. Why should leftist judges be protected when they willingly let violent criminals back on our streets? Even Elon Musk gets it. His 100% endorsement says it all. And Trump's Make D.C. Safe Again proves that the model works. Crime is collapsing, streets are clean, order restored. Even in New York City. Now it's time to clean up the courts. So here's the question. Should judges face mandatory minimums for releasing repeat violent offenders? Yes or no? Sound off below. Let's continue the conversation and grab some Next News gear on your way out at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.